Hare Krishna. Can you hear me? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Can you hear me?
we can. Yes, Bruce.
Okay. So let's resume. Shri Prabhupada Harinamrita reading session. I'll first chant prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Shlakya Churumilita Vyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutane Swayam Rupakadama Hyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatharnitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagar Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitaika Pradayine Gaura Katha Dhamadaya Nagra Gramatarine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Gopi Pranadandase Iti Namine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giram Yatripatamaham Bande Shri Guru Diltarinam Yatkripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dashkaram Sukaram Bhavet Smrite Viparitam Syat Sri Chaitanya Navamita. Okay, so we are in the chapter beginning the temple of Krishna Balaram. Rudradeep Nivai Prabhu. We are somewhere, what do I say? Somewhere in the middle. Just looking at the book because I have only book in. This is the volume 5, page 235. Anyway, Rudradeep Nivai Prabhu. It's somewhere in the middle. It starts with, although many of the Western devotees inexperienced in living and traveling in India were afflicted with indigestion, dysentery, and even in some cases, culture shock and homesickness. That's how it begins.
That part we have read, Prabhuji.
Huh? No.
We are in the page 238 in the book.
Is it?
Oh. Yes, Prabhuji. We have finished all those things and we have finished that Srimad Bhagavatam because Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was lecturing on the first this one for 3 months. Till there we have finished.
Can somebody else screen share because I'm having some problem with the internet.
Okay, give them the screen share rights.
Yes. Yes, I did. To Induleka Mataji. She's ghost, unless somebody else.
Yes, Prabhu, I can do, but just let me open once, Prabhuji. Just I'll open it and then I'll share it. One second.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama.
Indulekha Mataji,
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. I got it, Prabhuji, because I was searching where it was.
Hare
So
Rama, Hare Krishna,
I can share this 1 minute.
Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Where is it? Yeah, this screen should be shared. Yeah. It's coming, Prabhu?
no,
No, I don't know. Okay, now?
yeah, it's going to come. Yeah, it came.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. Sorry,
Any
Prabhuji.
read today? Anybody would like to volunteer to read today? Okay, Indulekha Mataji, you can yourself read.
Yes, Prabhuji, I will read. Prabhupada learned one day that one of his disciples had left the company of the ISKCON devotees to live among the Babajis at Radhakunda. Prabhupada became angry and sent for the boy to come immediately. When the boy arrived, Prabhupada went out to see him. Dressed in only a dhoti, Prabhupada spoke sternly to his disciple, saying that the monkeys of Vrindavana also live simply but are interested only in eating and sex. Don't become a monkey, Prabhupada said, trembling as he spoke. Why don't you come and live with me? The boy replied, the Babajis have given me some facility to chant. You come with me, Prabhupada explained. I will give you facility, but don't become a monkey. The boy surrendered before Prabhupada's compassionate concern. Prabhupada heard from his disciples living in Vrindavana that some of the local Goswamis had a complaint about him. They had read an article published in Back to Godhead and considered it insulting. The article, written by Prabhupada's disciple Hayagriva, contained a statement that Goswamis in Vrindavana who misbehaved would become hogs and monkeys in Vrindavana in their next life. Prabhupada replied that the statement was accurate. The article, he said, that had not specifically referred to the present Goswamis, but to any Goswami who lived sinfully in Vrindavana. This was not merely an opinion, but was the authoritative conclusion of the original Goswamis of Vrindavan. Although Yamuna Dasi lived in Vrindavana with her husband, Gurudasa, Prabhupada rarely saw her. So one day he sent for her and inquired why she was not coming to hear him and serve him. Yamuna admitted that she was afraid because Prabhupada seemed to be in a chastising mood of late. She was referring to Prabhupada's insistence and pushing to get the Vrindavan temple built. Prabhupada said that only by his pushing was the temple being built. But Yamuna again confessed her fear of Prabhupada's anger. You may be afraid of your spiritual master, Prabhupada said, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't come and see him. He then narrated the story of how Lord Balarama had once forced the river Yamuna to come before him. As he spoke, all the devotees present became aware that Prabhupada was not only telling the Leela of Lord Balarama's frightening the river Yamuna, but he was also speaking indirectly about his disciple Yamuna. Absorbed in the pastimes of Lord Balarama, Prabhupada described how the Lord, intoxicated from drinking honey, had threatened the river Yamuna, forcing her to come. But when Yamuna did not come, Lord Balaram had cut into the earth with his plow, forcing her to flow to him. In this way, Prabhupada said, I will drag you to come and see me. Yamuna Dasi agreed to stop her foolish reluctance and come and cook for her spiritual master. Although the afternoons were warm in Vrindavana, the early mornings were chilly. Dressed in a sweater a wool chadar and a fuzzy wool cap that buttoned under his chin, Prabhupada led his disciples on a pre-dawn walk along Chatikara Road, with the ISKCON leaders and sannyasis staying close to catch his words. He walked and talked in Vrindavana. His walks were so long that most of the devotees became tired, and some joked that Prabhupada was going to walk all the way back to Delhi. When the sun rose, gradually the air would begin to warm. Some of the devotees had expected that in Vrindavana, Prabhupada would talk more about the places of Krishna's pastimes and about Krishna and the gopis, and that Prabhupada himself would want to see the places of Krishna's pastimes. But Prabhupada seemed far more concerned to hear of the preaching of his disciples or to discuss the construction of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. Often, when devotees raised the topic of Vrindavana, Prabhupada would criticize the cheating of certain Vrindavana Babajis and the corruption within Vrindavana. Or he would speak of the special vision required before one could properly see Vrindavana. He said Vrindavana was wherever a pure devotee lived, and he stressed that the devotee's main business was to go out of Vrindavana and preach. As they walked along the route, the main traffic was pedestrians, workers carrying milk on bicycles, or men riding on bullock carts. Only occasionally an automobile would speed by, its horn honking. Almost every person who approached would respectfully greet Prabhupada with Jai Radhe or Hare Krishna, or they would hold up their hands or bow their heads and say Namaste. One young man driving a bicycle rickshaw approached him from the opposite direction, and just before reaching Prabhupada, stopped his rickshaw, got down, stepped out of his shoes, and prostrated himself on the road. Prabhupada smiled and said, "Very good boy." Prabhupada paused. "This is Vrindavana," he said. The simple habit of the ordinary people in Vrindavana to offer respect to a saintly person was to Prabhupada an expression of Vrindavana's essence. Vrindavana was one of the few remaining places in India where even a common man would chant the name of Radharani and Krishna as he passed by on the road. To fully understand this extraordinary phenomenon was to understand Vrindavana. One devotee asked Prabhupada that if so many residents of Vrindavana were fallen souls, then what was the meaning of the statement that to be born in Vrindavana was to be liberated? It says in the Krishna book, the devotee said that the people in Vrindavana don't need a spiritual master. Krishna is their spiritual master. Yes, Prabhupada replied, they have an excellent spiritual master, but one may have a spiritual master and not obey him. Then what is his position? So they are fallen who do nonsense things in Vrindavana, but their fortune is also there, that they are born in Vrindavana, but they misuse that fortune. The land was dry. Prabhupada said that Vrindavana was becoming like a desert and would become more so in the future. He said this was because of impiety. In the West, he said, I see in America, Germany, there is so much green, but not here. The devotees then questioned Prabhupada, wasn't the West more impious than Vrindavana? Yes, Prabhupada said. I came to you in the West, and you did not know anything about Krishna. You did not even know that these things were bad, meat eating and illicit sex. But when I told you to stop, you did it. But this is Krishna's land, Vrindavana, and they are doing these things here. Therefore, it is even worse, and they are being punished directly by Krishna. Prabhupada's morning walks in Vrindavana were as exciting and enlightening as his formal lectures. On 2 consecutive morning walks, he outlined a comprehensive plan for starting an ISKCON Varnashrama college. Bhagavad Gita explains how society should be divided into 4 orders according to a person's nature and occupation. Prabhupada said that although the members of the Krishna consciousness movement were above the social divisions, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, they should teach others by acting perfectly within these divisions. Not everyone would become a Brahmana, but everyone could attain the same perfection by doing his particular duty for the pleasure of Krishna. We will teach military art, said Prabhupada, to the amazement of his disciples. Soldiers will wear tilaka and march, saying Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They can march with the military band and fight. To Prabhupada, establishing Varnashrama Dharma did not seem difficult. ISKCON should begin by starting a college based on the Varnashrama conception. There should be no unemployment. Prabhupada said, we will say, why are you sitting idly? Come onto the field. Take this plow, take this bull, go on working. Why are you sitting idly? This is the Krishna consciousness movement. Nobody should be allowed to sit down and sleep. They must find out some employment, either work as a Brahmana or as a Kshatriya or as a Vaishya. Why should there be unemployment? Just as this body is working, that means the leg is working, the hand, the brain, the belly. So why should there be unemployment? You stop this unemployment, you will see the whole world is peaceful. There will be no complaint. They will be happily chanting Hare Krishna. Just like this field here, no one is working it. They have all gone to the cities to work in the factory. It is a condemned civilization. On a morning walk near the end of the Vrindavana festival, one of the devotees mentioned that the festival was almost over and that the devotees would be going back to their centers. Yes, said Prabhupada. And he stopped walking. Yes, that is our real business, to go and preach. As the devotees were making travel arrangements for Delhi and onward, Giriraja arrived in Vrindavana with upsetting news from Bombay. The municipality of Bombay had denied them permission to begin construction of a temple. According to Giriraja, 2 permissions were required: permission to build according to rules and regulations and a no objection certificate from the police commissioner. In issuing the no objection certificate, the police must consider 2 points: whether the temple would create a traffic problem and whether the presence of a temple would cause community or religious tensions. The municipality had been delaying their permission, saying they first required an NOC from the police. And the police had been saying that they needed the sanction of the municipality before they would consider giving the NOC. Giriraja had been pursuing this bureaucratic matter, but now a commissioner from the police has written a letter flatly refusing to give an NOC. According to the commissioner, the kirtana in the temple would produce a nuisance. The report from Giriraja deeply disturbed Srila Prabhupada. You should immediately object, he told Giriraja on his walk the next morning, that the government is completely unqualified. The pure devotees are always engaged in kirtana, and the government calls it a nuisance. He could at least be a gentleman and say that the sound should not be amplified while people are trying to take rest. But instead, he has said the kirtana is simply a nuisance. Prabhupada said that there were many learned persons in Bombay and they also would not stand for this judgment. You have to organize all the Vaishnavas. Prabhupada continued. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. One has to chant Krishna always. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Kirtaniya Sadahari. And this rascal is saying, Bhajana is nuisance? It's not, is it not possible to invoke an agitation against this? What right has he got to say nuisance? He could have spoken in sweet language that the bhajan may be very good for the devotees, but it creates disturbance to the others. Therefore, we cannot allow. Say like that, but they cannot still stop bhajana. But his remark is that the bhajana is nuisance. Chanting Hare Krishna is the culture of India. We must make propaganda and organize kirtan parties and fight this. One of the GBC men proposed that instead of going back to the West, some of the devotees stay, go to Bombay and hold massive protests. At first, Prabhupada approved this spirit, likening it to Lord Chaitanya's protest against the Qazi, who had stopped the Sankirtana movement in Navadvipa. But on reflecting, he decided it would not be wise to fight with the government. The devotees could not hope to win such a fight, nor would the people appreciate it. Prabhupada suggested the devotees hold massive kirtan program and preach positively to the people of Bombay, convincing them of the value of Krishna consciousness. When the people of Bombay are convinced of the importance of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada said, they will see that the temple is built. In an urgent mood, Srila Prabhupada left Vrindavan for Bombay. His last instruction to Gurudasa and the others in Vrindavana, an ideal Goswami should remain here to challenge any false Goswamis. But if you also become false, then you cannot challenge.
Matthew, you can
Yes.
you can pause for a few minutes.
Yes.
I think I've brought this up before, but I'll explain this a little bit more detail. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada identifies the members of the Krishna consciousness movement as Saraswatas. Saraswata means the followers of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Undoubtedly, Srila Prabhupada is the most prominent Saraswata, the most prominent follower of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And he identifies the members of the Krishna consciousness movement as Saraswatas. So what is it that about Saraswatas that is different from the others? And Prabhupada gives a twofold definition of a Saraswata in Chaitanya Charitamrita. One is to propagate the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu across the whole world. And the second is to fight against the atheists and the Mayavadis and the scientists and scholars and things like that. So this is the same as what Lord Nityananda did also. Lord Nityananda is glorified as one who came to give Prema Pracharan Pashanda Dalan. Prema Pracharan means to distribute love of God, to spread the message of love of God, and Pashanda Dalan, to subdue the atheists and the agnostics and the scientists, all those who are opposed to the conclusions of pure devotional service. So it is a two-pronged definition. So we may say that, okay, we are spreading the Krishna consciousness, we are trying to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. That's fine. That's one part of the definition. But if we are Saraswatas, followers of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, our identity is not complete without doing both, which is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement and to oppose anything which opposes the conclusions of pure devotional service. So here you see Prabhupada, in the last sentence that we read here, he is saying an ideal Goswami should remain here to challenge any false Goswamis. But if you also become false, then you cannot challenge. So ours is sampradaya of the book, which means that we are, as Prabhupada's name itself goes, Bhakti Vedantas. In fact, Prabhupada explains in one lecture that the title Bhakti Vedanta was, Prabhupada is the first person to receive that title. And the Mayavadis were opposing that Vedanta and Bhakti are not generally combined together. It's not usually, they're two separate things. But the title Bhakti Vedanta that as given to Prabhupada means Bhakti as practiced according to Vedanta. So this is what characterizes, this is what differentiates us from all the other Krishna Bhaktas. Let's put it like that. There are hundreds and millions of Krishna Bhaktas in India. We are of a different category. We are practicing pure devotional service. We are not practicing just Krishna Bhakti, because generally the Krishna Bhakti that's practiced in India is Bhakti in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. But we are practicing not Bhakti in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, but we are practicing pure devotional service. And what characteristics of that practice is that we are not tolerant of everything. We become intolerant when the conclusions of pure devotional service are opposed. Then we become intolerant. We fight against it. Not fight against it by violence, physical violence, but we fight against it using reason and argument. So what kind of reason and argument? Reason and argument from the Vedanta, from the Bhakti Shastras. Sarva Vedaika Satphala. So the Sarva Vedaika Satphala. Sanatana Goswami speaks about Bhagavatam. The Sarva Vedaika Satphala. The conclusion, the Satphala means the ripened fruit of the Vedic literatures is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sarva Vedaika Satphala. Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya. Of all the conclusion truths, the conclusion, the Siddhanta, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, the crest jewel of all the Siddhantas is the Bhagavatam. What is the third line? Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay, sorry. I got it. So I was just trying to look up that verse. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha. Of all the scriptures, Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha. The nectar from all, the nectarian essence of all the scriptures. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satphala. The ripened fruit of the Vedic tree. Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, the crest jewel of all the all the conclusions. Siddhanta, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikpada, the one which can give light. Yeah, Drikpada. Yeah, Sarva Lokaika Drikpada, which means that the scripture which can give Drikprada means direction. Sarva Lokaika for all the world. So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are followers of the Bhagavatam. We are the followers. We are the Bhagavatas. So when we present bhakti according to the conclusions of the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada repeatedly emphasized, this is how we present bhakti. We don't just present bhakti as, oh, Radha Krishna pastime, or oh, it is just Vrajalila, it's the most intimate, and it's like Krishna at home. All that is fine. But it has to be presented in line with the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this morning, in Sridham Mayapur, the Bhagavatam class was given by His Holiness Bhakti Prabhava Swami. He's a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Chara Swami. So he was mentioning that when the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita was released, 1 minute. Yeah, so this morning, His Holiness Bhakti Prabhava Maharaj gave the Bhagavatam class, and he was mentioning that how his spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Chara Swami, when the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita was released, during the morning Bhagavatam reading time, he would be reading the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. So then he said to Bhakti Prabhava Maharaj that there is the person Bhagavata and the book Bhagavata. So he said that Srila Prabhupada is the person Bhagavata. So to read about his pastimes is the same as reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we have these Prabhupada Leelamrita sessions, we should be conscious of this fact. It dawned upon me that I need it really rang a bell. So I wanted to bring this up to you, that when we have these Prabhupada Leelamrita sessions, these are not different from Srimad Bhagavatam sessions, and we should approach it in that mood. So we saw how Vrindavan Prabhupada is very strict. Prabhupada is very particular that we follow bhakti only according to the Bhakti Shastras. And the same, and that's one thing. And the other thing is to challenge anything which opposes bhakti as presented in the Bhakti Shastras. Okay, I'll stop there. The comments. Any thoughts, reflections, questions? We see how Prabhupada is really angry with the word nuisance that the police commissioner used. Prabhupada is really angry. He just doesn't like that word, which is actually outrageous to say that Kirtan is nuisance. So Prabhupada is saying how he could have said, okay, it may create some disturbance to others. But Prabhupada is not willing to accept that phrase called nuisance. So he's willing to fight back.
Prabhu Hareshna.
Yes, Prabhu.
I was just thinking this bhakti, since you told about bhakti is something which is, I mean, if you compare it to in a classroom, it's like only if you score 99, you are eligible for IIT, for example. So likewise, bhakti is in the top of it. So to achieve that bhakti is only few can achieve that. Like in a class, maybe there are 3-4. So for persons like me, it's very difficult to achieve bhakti. So what is the source for us, Prabhu? While we do all the devotional process, that is just a process. So what you realize out of it is a bhakti. That's what I think so, Prabhu. So what is I mean, for persons, what I'm trying to say is not achieved by all. So what we have to do, we still need to keep performing that, and we have to wait that at some particular janma we will get the bhakti. Is that how it is, Prabhu?
In a lecture in Melbourne, Srila Prabhupada was asked this question: how long does it take for us to get bhakti? So, the Prabhupada instantly replies, 1 moment. Then the person who asked the question wants to ask something more. Prabhupada cuts him off and says, 1 moment. And he says, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Paritejya Mamekam Sharanam Praja. Simply you have to follow. So, Prabhupada explained that, see, there are two different things. When you say bhakti, I think you're referring to when will we get prema, right?
Exactly. That's prema is what I'm meaning. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that is not pure bhakti. I mean, that is the highest stage of pure bhakti. But pure bhakti, anyone can take to it. It is not necessary that only, I mean, pure bhakti, the highest stage of pure bhakti is prema bhakti. But as Prabhupada gave the example, the the green mango becomes a ripe mango. So there is pure bhakti in practice, and then there is pure bhakti in perfection. So we are practitioners of pure bhakti. So not yet perfected pure bhakti. That should not be forgotten. That we are actually practitioners of pure bhakti. Anyone can do it. And if you are not doing it, something is wrong with us. So, I mean, there's no excuse for that. That's why Prabhupada says what moment it takes. So, practitioners of pure bhakti, when they become perfected practitioners, that's called prema bhakti. Now, yes, prema bhakti is not an ordinary goal. It's very lofty, very exalted, very difficult also. It's not a cakewalk. It's not just a routine, automatic, mechanical something. No, it's not like that. However, Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas have said that we can attain prema bhakti in one lifetime. So because the acharyas have said it, we should take that as a fact. So in our practice of pure devotional service, we should be conscious that we can attain prema bhakti in one life. Now, whether we'll attain that, we don't know because of the way we practice. But is it possible to attain? Yes, it is possible to attain.
Fine, Prabhu. I mean, I think we need to stay positive. I need to stay positive and just keep doing it. That's it. Not expect it. That's it.
Correct. Just we have to constantly take shelter. Like Kadamkara Maharaj says that if you start thinking, okay, I'm deficient here, I'm deficient there, then we can get easily depressed and discouraged. Instead of thinking I'm deficient here, I'm deficient there, all that, we should think in terms of I need to take shelter. I need to take shelter. I need to take shelter. That's more positive. Not more positive. That is the positive. Yes, I need to take shelter. I need to take shelter. So just keep taking more and more shelter, more and more shelter, more and more shelter.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Can you just explain, like, because Yamuna Mataji was not going to Prabhupada to serve him because his mood was angry, this one. Can you just explain, like, why, like, Prabhupada told you? Can you just give me what's the lesson we are learning over there when Prabhupada said you should come and serve?
See, there is no excuse for whatever the spiritual master does, the disciple is supposed to accept. So, okay, I'll phrase it. I'll just put that within quotes. Whatever, no, let me clarify that first. Whatever Nitya Siddha, a perfected pure devotee, does, disciples have to accept all of it. So the fact that she was not coming to see Prabhupada was not acceptable because Prabhupada says it, right? Even if the Guru is angry, that does not mean that you don't come to see him. He's very clearly saying that. He says that you may be afraid of your spiritual master, Prabhupada said, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't come and see him. So there is something called the word responsibility. The way that word is derived in the English language, there is something called response. There's something called ability. The ability to respond is called responsibility. So okay, we may be afraid. Okay. So being afraid is a state of mind.
Mm.
Now, how do we respond to that state of mind? That is what is important. So Prabhupada is saying, okay, that is not in your control, right? State of mind is not in your control. Correct? How can state of mind be in our control? It's not in our control. How we respond to that state of mind is in our control. So Prabhupada is saying, okay, you may be afraid, but you respond to it properly. Don't respond to it improperly. That's what is Prabhupada trying to say there. He's not saying, okay, you may be, why are you afraid? He's not saying that. You're afraid, okay. But that does not mean that you don't come and see him.
Okay.
So there is state of mind, then there is response. Whatever may be our state of mind, we should respond correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that okay, Mathu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Any other thoughts or comments, reflections, questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Could you please
Yes.
give an example, Prabhu, that the state of mind and how do we respond? Positive and negative, if it is possible.
Okay. Okay. We are in front of a superior Vaishnava. Okay. Example. They say something. Okay. And we think this Vaishnava doesn't care for me. Look at what he said. I was actually dependent on this Vaishnava. I mean, I'm not talking physical dependence, just like generally, spiritual dependence. I was dependent on this Vaishnava. And look at what he said. Okay. So that's what the mind will tell. How are you going to respond to the mind? Because the problem is that unless we are very sharp, that's why Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness, spiritual life is like a razor's edge. So we should be sharp to distinguish between the thoughts produced by the mind and our responses to those thoughts. Okay. So if the mind says, oh, look at how this Senior Vaishnava spoke to me. He doesn't care about me or she doesn't care about me. What is it actually? That is a thought produced by our mind. So we should know, according to the Bhagavad Gita, there is no external enemy which is greater than our own minds. We may think, okay, we have this enemy, that devotee doesn't like me, that my boss doesn't like me, or whatever. These people don't like me, and these people are, I mean, they want me to go down in life, or whatever, you know. So, but Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, okay, you take the greatest enemy in the world, whoever you think is your greatest enemy, but you have an even greater enemy than that, and which is the mind. So the moment you hear, okay, see, devotee is saying something, which you may feel, oh, this is a letdown. Oh, this is something, you know. That the mind is producing that thought. So spiritual life is a razor's edge, which means that we should not identify with the mind. We should immediately recognize, mind is saying like this. Is it right? Is the mind right? Quite often, you don't have the tools to understand whether it's right or wrong. So what should be done in such a situation? Ask the superior Vaishnava properly. Say that you said so and so, you said such and such thing. To me, it appears this is what you meant, you know, and I feel let down by that. What do you have to say about it? Please forgive me if my thinking is wrong, but please tell me what to make out of it. This is called the right response. It's called responsibility, the ability to respond. So you have to respond thinking you are not the mind. Quite often, when the mind suggests something, if you are not sharp, we'll think, we identify with the mind so much. Yeah, that's us. Yes, we are right. Mind is saying something. So we have to make the effort to figure out whether what the mind is saying is correct or not. Mind may be saying based on experience, because mind is an experience, is a repository of experiences. So mind will say, look, this is what I've experienced, this is what you've experienced in the material world. Look at this devotee, this is what it means. Are we going to listen to the mind, or are we going to do the right thing by going and asking, Prabhu or Mataji, this is, you behave like this today with me. I feel let down by that behavior. At least my mind is saying that this is not appropriate behavior. I'm confused. Please clarify. Please forgive me if I'm wrong. I mean, if it is, I mean, please forgive me for bringing up this question, whatever, but I need to know the answer. Like that, whatever. I'm just paraphrasing it. You understood, Mataji? This is the point.
How to get that ability, Prabhu? Like I have to approach my, how to get that ability means I should identify that this mind is, my mind is dictating me to go in a wrong way. So I should approach that Vaishnava again to clarify. But most of the time, as you said,
your mind need not be always directing you the wrong way. Mind is producing a thought from your experiences in the past. Okay.
Yes.
Now, the mind may be right, may be wrong. How do you know? But without asking, you will not know. Okay, assume that the Vaishnava had a certain reason why they said it. So when you clarify, you can use your intelligence to understand, yes, this is a legitimate reason. So there's no need for me to be let down. Or you may say, oh, this is how this Vaishnava is thinking? Really? I do not think that this Vaishnava is going to think like this. So it could be either way. But without asking, we can't just conclude based on what our mind is saying. That's what I was trying to say. So there's nothing to train the mind. Nothing. So you just have to be, don't conclude something which is apparently negative without clarifying. That's always my point.
yes, bro.
So whenever we find anything disturbing with any Vaishnava, not only superior Vaishnava, any Vaishnava, juniors, equals, if something is disturbing us, better not to conclude that this Vaishnava is improper in his behavior and I'm right to feel disturbed by it. Better ask them, Prabhu or Mataji, why did you behave like this? If the Vaishnava is humble enough, they will tell you, sorry, I should not have behaved like this. If they are wrong. But if they are right, they'll tell you, this is why I behaved like this. Hope you understand. Like recently, I was trying to get a reference for something, one devotee. I want to engage that devotee in some devotional service. So I asked another devotee who knows him. I said, what do you think about this person? And he said, oh, he's a nice person, all that. Then I got more specific. I said, is this person diplomatic? So then this devotee said, Prabhu, how can I respond to this question of yours? I said, why not? He said, I myself am diplomatic sometimes. So how can I comment on somebody else being diplomatic when I myself am diplomatic? So this is a Vaishnava, Vaishnavas they're generally like this. They're supposed to be truthful and transparent. Look at this devotee. He simply said, I myself am diplomatic sometimes. How can I comment on somebody else's diplomacy? Unless a person has integrity, they will not speak like this, So, I mean, this is just a simple example I'm saying. So, don't underestimate Vaishnavas. You will be sometimes surprised by the kind of replies that you get from Vaishnavas. So we have to always hold the Vaishnavas place the Vaishnavas on a high pedestal. But if it's something something that is we are disturbed by, we should go and ask. And the Vaishnava is genuinely humble. And if it was a mistake, the Vaishnava will tell you, sorry, that is my mistake. But if they give an explanation, trying to tell you how they were right, then you can know, okay, is it right? Because you are the circumstance, right? You'll know whether this is right or wrong. Sometimes you may not know, but generally you will know. So if you don't know, okay, pray to Krishna. Don't conclude that the Vaishnava is wrong. Just pray to Krishna. Like Prabhupada, when his spiritual master, we read that earlier, ordered a snake to be killed, he was only thinking, why did my Guru Maharaj do it? Of course, he did not ask at that time, but there's a thought and he just left it. Because Prabhupada is a pure devotee. But later on, he got an answer from scripture. So like that, suppose you are not able to conclude, you don't have to worry about it. Krishna will provide the answer at some point in time. Even after asking the Vaishnava, if you're not clear about it, don't worry about it. Krishna will give you the answer at some point.
Yes, Prabhu.
Is it okay, ma'am?
Yes, Prabhu. Just wanted to share some realization when you were answering this question of mine.
Yes.
Yesterday, we had an opportunity of having association of Bhakti Dhira Damadara Swami Maharaj in our temple.
Okay.
So, when one of the devotee asked that why we are not able, Maharaj was answering one of the question by telling that Guru will take care. You just have to be engaged in the service of the Lord. That's all. So when somebody else asked, how can we develop that mood of that Guru will take care? Or most of the time, our mind will dictate that no, you should not be depending on your Guru. You should depend on your money and etc. 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 So Maharaj was telling that you don't worry about your mind. You just throw that mind away. You concentrate in how to engage yourself in the loving service of the Lord. Like how Yashoda Mai was engaged in preparing butter by thinking that if I prepare only, Krishna will not go and steal in others' house. If I engage somebody else to prepare this butter, Krishna might go out by stealing butter in somebody else's house. So your mind should be in such a way that how Yashoda Mai was engaged in the loving service of the Lord. Just wanted to share this, Prabhu. Thank you.
Here,
Hare
just to, I mean, some part of it was not very clear to me. So you're saying that Maharaj answered, just like Yashoda Mai is busy preparing butter for Krishna so that he doesn't steal from someone else's house. Is that what he's saying?
Yes. Means
Okay.
she was completely concentrating on how to please Krishna.
Okay.
So when we are engaged, obviously we will not bother about our mind.
See, there is a statement which is used by a lot of people in India, which is very famous also. It's called Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. If you protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. So like that, Bhakti Rakshati Rakshitaha. I will just say that if you protect your practice of pure devotional service will protect you.
We are struggling, Prabhu, to protect our pure devotional service. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah, regarding this ability to respond. So when the situation comes not with the devotees from outside, so how can we do this response, ability to respond?
Why? The same principle, right? We have to follow the principle of acting in the right manner. So if a karmi, okay,
Yeah.
let me put it like this. I studied my graduate years. In fact, what about high school years, graduate years in Christian institutions, which I very much like, by the way. I mean, they're very organized in education. So when I when I was in graduate college, I would wear tilak and kantimala to college. So when I would enter, we had a very large campus, and you had people sitting everywhere. I mean, like, it's a large campus. So it's not like everybody's in one place. So you'll pass through different pockets of the campus where it's easy for someone to tease you. So when I would go through some of these pockets where there are some boys and maybe a few girls sitting together, they would catcall us, not catcall, yeah, maybe catcall. Govinda, Govinda, they would say, you know? And you would only know that it came from a group of people, from which group of people it came, that's it. You would not know who actually said it. You know? So whenever I would hear a catcall like that, what I would do is I would start walking towards that group. You know, quite often, when you start walking towards a group, when you've been catcalled and you start walking towards a group, you could clearly see a bit of nervousness because you don't know whether there's a fight going to ensue now. You know, because usually people get annoyed and walk towards a group of people like that. But what I would do is I would go to that group, I would show them a thumbs up sign and smile at them and say, you made my day. I'm wearing this so that you all call out to me like this. Govinda, Govinda. Of course, that's a very good icebreaker also. Then people become relaxed because they're a little bit nervous when you're walking towards them. You don't know what, I mean, of course, not that they're afraid, but you know, when there is a situation like that, they're also prepared to get ready for a fight and things like that. Suddenly this kind of thing disarms them, and I just show them a thumbs up and just smile at them and say, you made my day. This is why I'm wearing this. So that you call out Govinda, Govinda. So even with Karmis, we can always respond to them in a manner that they're very surprised. They don't find what do you call it? People what do you say? And people exhibiting they find only people exhibiting base qualities. They don't find people exhibiting exalted qualities, you know. But by the grace of Prabhupada, we have been blessed with exalted qualities. So why not exhibit them even for the karmis? You know, they'll be very impressed with that actually. So I remember once I had gone to Ekachakra. It's called Ekachakra. And there was a devotee guide who would normally take us around. But as we were entering the prasadam area, he was not with us. Somehow, at that point in time, he was not with us. So, the guard at the prasadam place, the devotee told us, you can walk in, please have prasadam. But the guard at the devotee at the entrance stopped me and the others behind me. I mean, with the group we had gone, and said, where is your coupon? And I said, oh yeah, you're right. We don't have a coupon. So we need to get a coupon. I told him, I'm sorry, I don't have a coupon. I'll go get a coupon. Meanwhile, this devotee came and he began to chastise the guard. Hey, Jayapataka Maharaj is secretary. How can you stop him? And all those kind of things. So then I told him, listen, you cannot chastise him for doing the right thing because it is his duty to ask for a coupon, and you are not with us, right? If you are not with us, what is he supposed to do? Did he do the right thing or not? So I don't know what impact it had on the guard because I never spoke to him later on. After prasadam, we had to rush. But I'm sure that the guard, who's not a devotee, he would have noted this point that here is a Vaishnava who stopped him from being chastised. What is his fault? There is no fault of his. There's no fault of his. He did the right thing. So why should he get chastised just because he did whatever it was? That devotee said, whatever he said, why should he get chastised? He just didn't know whatever it was. Doesn't matter. So in our response to karmis also, we had to be careful. I could have as well shouted at him by saying that, hey, you don't know who I am, why you don't allow me on these kind of things. That's craziness. That means we are not even a devotee in the first place. We start behaving like that. So with karmis also, we had to be conscious. We had to be conscious of the principle of Trinadapi Surichera Taro Rapi Saishuna Amarina Maradena Kirtane Sada. So in a situation where you're being taunted, we should exhibit higher qualities. We should also not get down to the level of taunting and kind of fighting back. Just a few examples that I'm giving, but there are various situations that you can come across in life. But in every situation of life, we should invoke the exalted qualities that have been bestowed upon by Srila Prabhupada's person.
Yes. Okay, Guruji, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Mati, I just forgot to tell you one more point. One more point. That incident in Ekachakra, this had an impact in the group that I was traveling with. In the group, there was one lady, a young lady, who was a doctor, who was very new to Krishna consciousness. And later on, she wrote me a text on WhatsApp saying that, thank you for behaving the way you did with the guard today. I never knew that devotees, I only heard that devotees have good qualities or whatever. They should have only heard about it. She said, I saw that devotees actually exhibit these qualities. So that she said, it gives me faith to practice Krishna consciousness. So I wrote back to her saying that this is by the mercy of Prabhupada, that he is the one who has bestowed these qualities upon us. And because he has bestowed these qualities upon us, it works. It works. So anyway, the point is that we never know who we are going to affect. So we should always be conscious of behaving with people in the right manner. Because it may not be sometimes the person who we are behaving with who may get affected by it. I'm talking in a positive sense. It may be somebody who's looking at it who may get affected.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, so if there are no further comments, questions, reflections, we'll continue. Yes,
Shall I
Julika.
begin? Yes.
Yeah, please continue.
Bombay, March 20, 1974. Disciples on
Can you speak closer to the mic? I think your voice is a bit faint.
Yeah, yes. Bombay, March 20, 1974. Disciples and ISKCON Life members continued to discuss with Srila Prabhupada about confronting the police commissioner's refusal to grant ISKCON permission to build a temple at Hare Krishna land. Ironically, ISKCON's property was bordered on one side by a large cinema hall, and every evening, both before and after the movie, a long line of traffic would form. The honking horns and the hundreds of pedestrians coming and going created much noise and congestion. If the neighborhood and government could tolerate a cinema, then how, without prejudice, could they call the Hare Krishna Kirtanas a nuisance? Although addressing the specific issue of government permission, Srila Prabhupada had
Prabhupada also preached.
Are you able to hear, Prabhuji?
No, now we are able to hear you.
Okay, I think by mistake it got muted. Sorry. Although addressing the specific issue of government permission, Srila Prabhupada also preached on the greater principle of how governments in Kali Yuga restrict religious life. The government policy, he said, is that religion is an opiate of the people. They think religion is just a sentiment. They want to open slaughterhouses and kill these mischief loitering cows. Their conclusion is that religion has no value. Therefore, their decision is not to encourage these temples and this bhajana. From their point of view, it is useless. Some of Prabhupada's Bombay friends suggested he work through the Janasangha political party, which supported Hinduism, and thus form a strong political coalition. But Srila Prabhupada was more concerned to to use this opportunity for preaching. I suggest that we make vigorous propaganda. He said, hold meetings in big halls so that the public may understand at least that this movement is very important. Let there be advertisements that we will speak on different subject matters, and then I will come and speak. In that meeting, make a nice gentleman the president. Create public opinion so that they will come and sign. Yes, here must be one temple. We will prove from Shastric evidence, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvidha bhajante mam janaha sukritino Arjuna. This word bhajana from bhajante is used with reference to the very pious men, sukritinaha. The opposite kind of man is dushkratinaha, the miscreants. So bhajana is for the pious men and as recommended in the Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita is held in great estimation all over the world. And yet he has accused bhajana as nuisance. How rascal and ignorant. We have to make it clear that bhajana is so important. Bhagavad Gita is meant for solution of all material problems. But the people of India are not accepting it. My disciples can also speak and say, you please come with us. We are foreigners, but we know Krishna is not for this or that. So why are you Indians lacking? You accept your culture. We have taken to Krishna, and Krishna says that simply by Kirtana, one becomes free from all contamination. So why not join with us? What is the wrong there? It is stated in your Shastra and we have adopted it and we are feeling better. So why you are so callous? You educated youth and gentlemen, this kind of propaganda has to be made. Srila Prabhupada had abandoned the idea of direct political agitation, but he continued to speak against the police commissioner's decision and to deliberate on overcoming it. He considered the matter from all possible angles, pro and con. At one point, he said that if they could not get sanction to build a temple, then they should build a hotel. I am trying to get sanction, he said. If you don't give me permission, then hotel. Build a hotel in the front and temple in the rear, suggested Tamala Krishna Goswami. Yes, Prabhupada replied, and he instructed his men further on dealing with opposition. As with the struggle to acquire the land, the present struggle also threatened to become a long legal battle. Prabhupada remained always transcendental, however, even while fighting, and he maintained his normal activities in Bombay, enjoying the mild tropical climate. Although ISKCON owned a number of tenement buildings on the Juhu land, the devotees had not been able to use a single one since all were occupied. But recently, when tenants had vacated one of the apartments, the devotees had prepared it for Prabhupada. It was a modest place, 2 small rooms with a little kitchen. But now, for the first time, Prabhupada had his own residence at Hare Krishna land. Prabhupada liked to sit on the narrow veranda outside his apartment and take his massage in the sun, surveying the Juhu land with its many tall coconut trees, their long palm leaves rustling pleasantly in the breeze. Prabhupada said, Hare Krishna land was a paradise. The devotees were happy. One day, during his massage, Prabhupada saw that the contractors whom he had allowed to come and take coconuts for a set price were also taking away the leaves to sell in the marketplace. Leaping to his feet, Prabhupada called from the veranda, Chaitya Guru. Soon the devotee in charge of grounds management appeared before Prabhupada. I cannot close my eyes, Prabhupada said. No one else sees these things. You are being cheated. Every morning, several Indian gentlemen would join Prabhupada as he walked along Juhu Beach. Whenever Prabhupada would criticize so-called great political and spiritual leaders of India, exposing their poor understanding of Bhagavad Gita, these men would become disturbed. Similarly, Prabhupada's disciples became disturbed to hear these men argue with Prabhupada. One day, when Prabhupada criticized a favorite hero, a certain doctor argued back, criticizing Prabhupada's statement that the absolute truth was Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The doctor and others asserted that the absolute truth was many things and that ultimately everything was one. The devotees could barely restrain themselves, but still Prabhupada always treated these men as his friends. Early the next morning, in his room, however, Prabhupada told his disciples that these men were actually Mayavadis. We will now have a program, he said, where we will walk on the beach, but we will only chant Hare Krishna. If they want to talk, we will just chant, and we will all chant only. If they wish to, they can walk with us. Prabhupada, a devotee, said, they will be restless if we do that. Even if they don't chant, said Prabhupada, if they only hear, it will be beneficial for them. Mayavadi philosophy is very dangerous. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that whoever hears it is doomed. A devotee asked why a Mayavadi would disguise himself as a Krishna Bhakta. They do it, Prabhupada said, to get popular reception for being liberal to all. But if a woman says that she is very liberal and accepts any man, that may seem to be a liberal proposal, but it is not good. We will read the Krishna book on the walk, Prabhupada said. I am walking with my disciples. If these men like, they can join and hear. But if they want to ask questions, they must accept the Guru's answer without argument. Is that all right? The next morning, although the usual challengers did not join the walk, Prabhupada had Giriraja read aloud from the Krishna book. Suddenly, Prabhupada sighted the familiar group of speculators approaching from the opposite direction. But as they drew closer, they purposely turned aside so as to avoid Prabhupada. One of them came over, however, and representing the entire group, informed Prabhupada they were not going to walk with him anymore. They had met and decided that their conversation with him created too much argument and criticism. India has many saints, the man added. I am the policeman, Prabhupada said, and I have to catch the thief. After a few days, the same group rejoined Prabhupada on his walk, and the discussions continued as before. Some of Prabhupada's disciples remained disturbed, but Prabhupada was jolly, correcting his friends like an older brother, teaching them pure Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada would take a breakfast of fruit and nuts. Around 11 a.m., he would sit on the veranda in his gamcha while his servant massaged him with mustard oil. During the massage, Prabhupada would often speak with one or two of his Bombay devotees, giving them pertinent instructions. After lunch, he would rest an hour or two and, on raising, take a glass of fresh coconut water or sugarcane juice. In the evening, he would meet guests and then around 10 p.m. take rest. At 1 a.m., he would rise and sit at his desk beneath a tent-like covering of mosquito netting and dictate his translations and purports to Chaitanya Charitamrita until the time for his morning walk. Several times a day, Prabhupada would call for Giriraja and other Bombay managers to confer on the latest strategy in securing permission to build the temple. When Prabhupada's Bombay friends would visit, they would often find him on the roof of the tenement, sitting on white cotton sheeting and leaning on white bolsters, preaching the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita by the hour. He would ask his visitors to help him solidly establish Krishna consciousness in Bombay. One day, during the massage, Prabhupada confided to his servant, "Most men are retired at my age. I do not want to manage anymore. I just want to do some writing." Prabhupada asked if there was some place in the world he could go for 6 months, a place where he would be all alone, where no one would come to disturb him, and where he would not get any mail. Prabhupada's servant suggested Tehran. Prabhupada considered it, then suggested New Vrindavan. He spoke of Mahatma Gandhi, who could not even sleep at night because people were always after him, even though he traveled incognito. That very day, a letter came from Bhagavan in Paris, inviting Prabhupada to tour his ISKCON centers in Europe. Immediately, Prabhupada was enlivened at this invitation. He said he would go. But earlier today, his servant said, "You wanted to go away and be alone." Prabhupada laughed. "That will not be possible for me in this lifetime. Better I keep traveling and die on the battlefield. For a warrior, it is glorious to die on the battlefield. Is it not?" Traveling around the world once or twice a year had become Prabhupada's routine. In describing his own spiritual master, he had written, "Hindus are not allowed to cross the ocean, but you send your devotees overseas to preach." The injunction for Hindus not to cross the ocean was to protect them from leaving the pious land of India, since so many Indians gave up their culture when they went abroad. When Prabhupada had been a small child, one of his uncles had suggested he one day go to London and become a lawyer. But Prabhupada's father had protested. He did not want his son to be exposed to the sinful ways of the West. Years later, Prabhupada had gone to London as a preacher to change the ways of the sinful. For this reason, the Vaishnava should travel. Just before starting his European tour, Prabhupada explained to several devotees in his room that they also should travel and preach. He said they should do so while they were young, and then when they were old and matured in Krishna consciousness, they could go to Mayapur, retire, and simply chant Hare Krishna. Of course, for myself, Prabhupada added, "I am not so mature." The devotees were silent a moment, but then one ventured, "But Srila Prabhupada, if you say that you are not mature, then how can we ever think that we are old or mature enough to retire?" Prabhupada smiled and said that they would have to decide for themselves, but he was not mature enough. Tamala Krishna Goswami said, "Then we also will never become so mature that we can retire." April 18. Before going to Europe, Prabhupada responded to an invitation from his devotees in South India to attend a 3-day Pandal festival in Hyderabad. No sooner did he arrive at the airport in Hyderabad, however, than a group of reporters asked him for a press conference. Prabhupada consented, and a reporter opened with a technical philosophical question, inquiring whether Prabhupada's philosophy was Advaita or Dvaita. South India was so steep in the ancient philosophical debate between the Vaishnavas and the Shankarites that here an ordinary news reporter was concerned with the comparative philosophies. Prabhupada scoffed at the question. "What is the point of discussing such things?" he challenged. "Whether one is Dvaita or Advaita, Krishna says, Annat bhavanti bhutani. Anna means grains. The people have no grains. Grains are produced from the rains, and the rains from sacrifice. So perform sacrifice. You have to divide the society into 4 orders. You may be Advaita or Dvaita, but you need grains. Prabhupada's secretary wrote to Bhagavan in Paris, keeping him informed of Prabhupada's locations and schedule. You can contact us here until the 29th or 30th of April, after which we will be back in Bombay. Your idea for festivals sounds nice. Here they had a 3-day pandal. Last night about 1,000 people came, sat very silently through his whole lecture, and then pressed forward to receive blessings from Srila Prabhupada. Devotees had the deities on stage and a Vyasasana and lots of prasadam for the guests. April 25, from Hyderabad, Srila Prabhupada flew to Tirupati. There is a mountainous Tirumala stands, the richest temple in India, where a deity of Vishnu known as Balaji resides. The temple managers respectfully welcome Srila Prabhupada and his party, providing them with 2 cottages on the mountainside. According to the temple policy, people usually have to wait in a long line before seeing the deity, since 15,000 people enter the temple daily, and they are given only a brief darshana. Non-Hindus are usually not allowed, but Srila Prabhupada and his disciples received the special honor of a private darshana of Balaji. At the end of a long inner sanctum, its entrance guarded by 2 large figures of Jaya and Vijaya, the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, the deity was enthroned. The only light in the inner sanctum came from the flaming torches affixed to the walls or held by the pujaris. When approaching the deity in the hallway, many pilgrims would traditionally call out Govinda. But as Prabhupada entered, he sang Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Later, in his cottage, Prabhupada remarked that the millions of people going to see Balaji were proof that the masses are still attracted to God, despite government propaganda. Although most people may go to the Lord for alleviating material distress or for getting money, still they called out the holy name Govinda. A devotee asked Prabhupada why the deity was called Balaji. Balaji, Prabhupada said, means child. Krishna as a cowherd boy, not in his Vaikuntha aspect. Prabhupada was pleased to stay in the cottage and take the deity's prasadam. He suggested that in New Vrindavan, they built cottages like this, and that ISKCON built temples like the temple of Balaji with its gold dome and extensive facility for visitors. One day, an official of the Tirupati temple, while visiting Prabhupada, mentioned that their collection was about 40 lakhs of rupees per month. Prabhupada inquired how the temple's income was being spent. When the priest indicated that most of the money went for renovation of the buildings, Prabhupada replied that temple renovation was good, but propagating the message of Krishna all over the world was better. Balaji is Krishna, Prabhupada said. His message should be spread. He descended as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us. Prabhupada told the priest of how many old churches in London were not being used. How will the spirit of the temple be maintained without preaching? Prabhupada asked. The priest then boasted that they were building another temple and installing Panchopasana, 5 deities recommended for worship by the impersonalist Shankaracharya. Prabhupada was surprised. Your leader is Ramanuja, he said. He never recommended Panchopasana. For the 2 days in Tirupati, Prabhupada went 3 or 4 times daily to see the deity of Balaji. And whenever he went, the pujaris would clear the inner sanctum of all other visitors and allow him a private darshana for as long as he liked, standing in the torchlight before the mystical bejeweled form of Balaji. Should I continue?
Uh,
I think very
yeah, we have only a few more pages to finish the chapter.
yeah, very few. Shall I continue, Prabhu then?
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah, yes. Bombay, April 29. Although in a few days Prabhupada would be leaving for Rome, a problem now faced him and the management of his Indian project. Tamalakrishna Goswami was requesting that Prabhupada allow him to go to America after 4 years of management in India. He was eager to try a different kind of preaching. His godbrother friend Vishnujana Swami had pleased Prabhupada with his bus touring in America and had convinced Tamalakrishna that this was the most opportune preaching. Srila Prabhupada had accepted the proposal, although reluctantly. Certainly, it would be good for the preaching in America, and it would be good for Tamalakrishna. But what about India? Once again, Prabhupada was faced with the fact that the only manager for ISKCON in India was himself. Carefully, he reviewed a recent report of the spending and accounts in Mayapur, concerned that all money be handled very carefully and spent exactly for the purpose it was intended. He had written to Jayapataka Swami. Money for the land must be spent for land purchase. If I spend money for constructing of a kitchen, it must be spent for that. Also, if you purchase land, it must be properly utilized. And if you actually produce some grains and vegetables, then where is the necessity for further money for maintenance? For maintenance, we require 100 rupees per head without any risk for purchasing lands and cultivating the same. I understand there are only 20 men there at present. So at most 2000 rupees is necessary for maintenance. I am not competent to understand everything concerning what you plan to do, but that is my rough estimate. You have tried to explain by long letter, which I have not gone through yet. In the meantime, go on the above principle. Money spent must be used for that purpose intended. That will keep it very clear. From a previous letter from Srila Prabhupada, Bhavananda and Jayapataka had become a little despondent, thinking that they may have displeased their spiritual master. But Prabhupada reassured them, I know you are working hard and sincerely. I have no business to criticize, but as head of the institution of your spiritual master, it is my duty to find out your faults. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented himself as faulty before his spiritual master. To remain faulty before the spiritual master is a good qualification. So he is subjected to rectification. But if one thinks he is all perfect, then there is no scope for rectification. Don't be sorry when I find fault. That is my primary duty. Chanakya Pandita says, one must find fault with disciples and sons. It is good for them. Prabhupada also scrutinized the finances in Vrindavana, where Gurudasa was president and Tejas in Delhi was financial supervisor. Reviewing Tejas' latest request, Prabhupada wrote back, I am enclosing the list of checks requested by you by registered post, except I am not sending one check for rupees 3,000 for deity clothes to be paid to the tailor Lalit Prasad of Vrindavan. Deity paraphernalia is supposed to be collected separately by Gurudasa and Yamuna, not come out of the construction fund as you have requested. Besides, I have advised Gurudasa not to pay any tailor but to make clothes by your own devotees for the deities. Prabhupada also found a serious inconsistency in the accounting, which he pointed out to Tejas for correction. According to my checkbook, after writing the last check for rupees 1,76,000, there is a balance of only 18,745.81. But you are indicating a balance of rupees 1,313.64. Where is the difference? Send me a complete statement of account. Gurudasa and Tejas had assured Prabhupada that the Krishna Balaram Mandir would be ready to open by July 1974. Prabhupada designed the invitation cards himself and asked that they be printed and sent to important persons. The founder Acharya and the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness request the pleasure of Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so's company to visit the installation ceremony of the Krishna Balaram temple from August 8 to 10 and accept prasadam. Gurudasa Adhikari, local president, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, founder Acharya, Surabhidasa Adhikari, secretary. With only 3 months left, Prabhupada's plans were to travel from May through July, giving permission for transferring funds from Delhi to Vrindavan. He left. He would return in 3 months for the grand opening. Hare Krishna.
Saying policeman. Yeah. So these are very prominent businessmen of Bombay. But Prabhupada was not willing to soften the philosophy to please these businessmen. He wanted the truth and nothing but the truth. That's all. He would, I mean, he could avoid talking it. I mean, like, Professor, okay, let's read the Krishna book. But he would not tolerate somebody speaking something wrong. He would not say, okay, let's tolerate, let's ignore it. No, that he wouldn't do. That's how a Saraswata is supposed to be. We cannot be tolerant or ignore when a wrong philosophy is presented in our presence. Interesting that how Prabhupada describes Balaji as Krishna of Vrindavan. Balakrishna, young Krishna of Vrindavan. So Prabhupada is meticulous about everything that he did. He was very meticulous. You can see how he is checking the accounts of Mayapur. Every single thing is very, he's a very meticulous person. Like how in Bombay, he was observing that along with the coconuts, they're also taking the leaves to be sold. The Prabhupada says, you cannot see what I can see. You people are being cheated. Prabhupada is just perfect. The perfect master. Okay, so if there are no further reflections, comments, questions, so we'll end today's session. We'll resume again the next Sunday. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.